It takes 25 years to be an overnight success. But why does that actually give us hope as creatives? My acting teacher, Jennifer, would always quote the founder of my school, Bill Esper, 2 years down, 23 to go. It should give us a sigh of relief to know that we should not be expected to have it all figured out after a few years of undergrad, a few years of training, or even a few years in the industry. This work takes time. And the more that you can understand that we're on a journey, the more we can give grace to ourselves as artists, be grateful for the journey, the more we can just romanticize this entire creative life. There are 3 basic facets to this whole concept that, okay, it takes 25 years to be an overnight success, to be a successful artist. So what do we focus on? We focus on 3 things: training, experimentation, and failure. Our first step, training. This is gonna sound really simple, but everybody starts as a beginner. I tend to get overwhelmed by the idea that there's people whose parents were born in the industry that I wanna be in, whose parents are famous musicians and actors, and that gives them a leg up. Like, I wish my parents were in the industry, but at the end of the day, everybody is born with the same amount of experience. The difference is they are either open to learning about it and open to learning new things, or they're not. You can take somebody who was born into an acting family. They were taught everything they could know, and they could say, no, I don't want to learn it, or no, I don't need to learn it. Then you can take somebody who wasn't born into an acting family, who learns everything they can and gets all the information they need, uses all of the leverage they have to build up their career. It's incomparable at this point. The difference is how we implement what we learn, how we plan out our life, our attitude towards our career, and our willingness to learn and grow imperfectly. The other part of training that I also learned in acting school at the Esper Studio was what my acting teacher Jennifer would call the dirty diaper phase. This is the initial stage of learning or developing a craft where the primary goal is simply to achieve the basic functionality or signs of life, especially since the results are messy and unrefined. Think about a baby. The main goal of these first few stages of life as a baby is, let's make sure that this baby is pooping. Let's make sure that we have to constantly change its diaper, because if nothing's going out, then there's a problem. I know this is such a weird analogy, just stay with me. Very equally to this, the beginning phases of us as a creative is that we need to make sure that there is life to the art that we're giving, that there's passion and energy behind what we're doing, where we see this as a service. We don't see this as an ego boost, as a path to just fame. We see this genuinely as we have something that we want to provide for the world, and this is the medium in which we provide it. When we have this foundation in our creative journey that this is the life we want to bring to our craft, then it's okay for it to be a little bit messy, right? Dirty diapers are messy. I'm not even gonna go even more into that. We know. The beginning phases of being an artist is messy too, but that's when you can tell that it has life. You can tell that a baby has life because it has a messy diaper. Our artistry and our journey has life and value because it is messy. We're understanding how to collide what we love to something that brings value to the world. When this training phase, I want you to think about this dirty diaper phase that you're in. In one sense, I want to find another word for it, but in another sense, I want to honor what it was called in my acting school, because it does give a pretty good visual. In your training phase, I want you to really think about and just honor this dirty diaper phase. If you feel like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall, you're trying a bunch of new things, you're creating art that you're maybe not super happy with, things are going slow, posting things on social media about your work and you don't feel like it's getting traction, this is part of it. The fact that it is messy means that it has purpose and life, that you care so much about it that you're trying all these new things. Let's dive a little bit more into these 3 specific ways that we can get training to be this overnight success. I'm gonna keep using that in quotes because we all know that is not a thing. Think about college, higher education. We're talking 4+ years in an undergrad program. And then maybe if you want to do a master's program, that's 1 or 2 more years. 1 or more years in a training or certification program. Extracurriculars, enhancing what we're learning through this training. First of all, I want you to know that it is okay that things take time, right? Undergrad is 4 years. That is a lot of time that you can take to explore and be in this dirty diaper phase. I want to highlight the extracurricular options because I want you to really squeeze the juices out of wherever you are. I'm going back to this concept of everybody starts as a beginner, The difference is how you apply, how you look at your journey, how you carve the path for yourself. I went to school for theater. I got so caught up in I want to go to the best program and the most world-renowned program. At the end of the day, there's always going to be opportunities. It sounds so cliche, but it is what you make it. If you could go to the best school ever and do the bare minimum, and yeah, you have a degree from that school, but really how much did you apply? The second type of training is self-training and courses. This might not be as much time necessarily as higher education would be, but you have a financial accountability. There's risks that the course might not teach you what it says it's going to. I've joined courses where I've been a little bit underwhelmed and I'm like, I don't think that was really worth the money, and that's a risk that I took. This training program specifically comes with, this is why it takes 25 years, because you're risking things. You might be set back a little bit. It's all normal. You might spend money that you didn't mean to spend, that you were hoping could be worth something, but it might not be. That's all part of the journey. Obviously, we want to avoid that as much as possible, but that's part of the journey. The last source of training that we're talking about is real life experience. This is about learning the professionalism, how to communicate, learning the game, building connections. I like understanding the game and mastering the game. A lot of people knew how to do this in school. They knew how to get good grades. I was not one of them. I know a lot of people who just knew how to master the game of the multiple choice questions, got A's on everything, didn't need to study. This sort of training that you're gonna build, this takes time, learning how to win this game. That's really all that it is during these 25 years of becoming an amazing artist, you're learning how to play the game. You're learning through higher education, you're learning through training, you're learning through spending your own money, and you're learning just through this real life experience how this game works. Think about what part of the training you're in. You might not be doing all three of these things, but what type of training are you doing right now? If you don't feel like you're falling in any of these categories where you're in some sort of training, think about which one might be possible. And when I talk about real life experience, I'm talking about reaching out to connections and asking them, I really want to get into this industry. Do you have any internships, or could I offer 3 months of work just so I can understand the industry a little bit more? I have a whole video all about asking for help, so you can go to that one next. That is how I've personally made my life a lot easier, basically by learning how to ask for help from other creatives in the industry, because a rising tide lifts all boats. And I am not here to tell you that you should be in competition with anyone. And if anyone thinks that you're competition, then I don't think you're gonna be wanting their help anyway. Let's zone out a little bit. We're talking about training to be an overnight success. What kind of training do you have in your craft? Do you feel like you need more training? Like you want to go to school for this if you haven't? Like you want to take a course in this? Like you want to get some real life experience in this to really start understanding what it could be like to make this a full-time income? There's also training that you can have in what I call a cozy girl job. So this is the job that you'll have that can help you sustain your life until you're able to transition to become a full-time artist. Ideally, this cozy girl job is remote. It is in some sort of digital marketing, working with nice people. You can work on your own schedule. It's not impossible to find something like this, but I know that it can be a challenge. The idea of a cozy girl job, if it's not in digital marketing, could also be something that you're using your natural leverage in, and I can link my video about using leverage to make that journey more enjoyable in your art. If you went to school for engineering, but you want to be an artist, then you have leverage over me because I didn't go to school for engineering. You could probably get an awesome online job that pays more than I'm getting paid. You could be done at 5 p.m. and then work on your art until you can make that full time. So think about the leverage that you have with that. Then this is also training in your creative relationships. So I know those other two are like career relationships, but relationships are genuinely so important. I think about people who I've worked with in the past, and for creative projects I'd have in the future, so much of the reason why I'd want to work with them again, not just because they're talented, because a lot of people have talent, is because they're genuinely amazing human beings to work with. Part of this is that you're going to not only network, which I hesitate to use that word because network can feel fakey, but also building a community. Having a community of friends now who you don't have to feel alone as an artist. When you learn how to truly foster relationships and connections, you have that community, but then you also have future collaborators. creatives. Some of that might not necessarily be like, oh, there's a class in college about how to be a good person. I don't know if you're gonna find that. I think it's gonna be a lot of self-work, self-awareness, and self-care. So our next phase of being this overnight success, as my cat's tail dances around our video, is experimentation. I don't have kids, but I know that it takes kids a long time to do something. And sometimes when you're rushing out of the house, you gotta tie their shoes for them, you got things to do. It might take a long time for you to sit down and teach a kid how to tie their shoes. That's gonna be some upfront work, but that's gonna save you so much time in the future of having to tie their shoes, because once they've learned it, they can now do it themselves. The part about this that relates to us as creatives is that we need to give ourselves that time to experiment and learn how to do things so that we can do them in the future. If we don't give ourselves that time, we're never actually going to learn. We're always gonna try to be chasing something, maybe half doing it, but we're never genuinely, look at this cat pizza. If this kid is struggling, maybe let them struggle for a little bit and let them really figure it out. We don't want to constantly be doing everything for them because they won't be able to do it in the future. And that's also really similar to our creative path. We need to give ourselves that time to struggle so that a few years from now we can say, oh yeah, we tried that. No, I'm super positive that this is the path that's gonna work. Because if not, then we're never gonna know what path is gonna work. If I didn't try starting a YouTube channel, I might be thinking about it in the future and being like, should I have tried? I didn't really give it a chance. I didn't really struggle with it. Do you know what I mean? We need to be the kid trying to tie their shoes and not remembering when to do the bunny ears or whatever it is. Because if we don't struggle, we're not gonna learn. I know that sounds so cheesy and obvious, but this is what it comes to. Think about right now the things that you've been considering. Have you been considering starting an Etsy shop? Have you been considering working for an art gallery, taking dance classes, or whatever it may be, taking improv classes? If you don't give yourself that time to experiment, you're never gonna know 2-3 years from now, oh, I know that technique didn't work, that approach didn't work, and you won't be super confident in what you're doing because you're always gonna think about, I didn't actually try that fully, so I don't actually fully know if this is the path I should take. The amazing part about this is that this helps you embrace the brand, the niche, the genre of you. Once you have taken the time to experiment with everything, you're gonna learn what you like, what you don't like, what you gravitate to, what you don't gravitate to, and you'll start creating this image of who you are as an artist. Instead of trying to chase this niche, this genre or brand, maybe this is who I am, or maybe I'm like this person, or maybe I fall under this niche or this niche. It's not about that, it's about shaping who you are. You're such a diva, even though you're a boy, you're diva. You'll start learning, this is who I am. I had to spend a lot of time to realize even the type of content that I made. I experimented with a bunch of different content and I realized I don't really feel good creating more negative content. I feel better making people feel like they're my friend. I had to go through that. Don't drink my smoothie. Now he's trying to drink my smoothie, so I'm just gonna hold it. I had to go through this journey of experimentation in order to understand who I was, what I liked. That's what you're gonna have to do too. It's like understanding your boundaries. I know boundaries has a negative connotation, but it's understanding you don't really know what your boundaries are until someone's crossed it, and then you say, that didn't really feel good. Why didn't that feel good? That crossed my boundary. It's kind of the same thing. You try a bunch of different things and something doesn't feel right, and you say, okay, I wouldn't have known that it didn't feel right unless I tried it. Let's talk a little bit more about this creative experimentation. It is time consuming at the beginning, but it saves time later. Back to this whole kid analogy. It's gonna take some time. You are not going to start something and tomorrow it's going to be an overnight success. And if it is, love that for you. But it probably won't be, and that's okay, and that's normal. The important part is that you're putting in the work now to discover who you are, to train, to experiment, in order to then 2-3 years from now look back and say, I am so secure in who I am as an artist, in my goals, in my journey, and creating this path that I truly align with and love, that I don't look back and think what would have happened if I did this, because I did all that. Like, I tried it and that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. and this is what works. Creative experiment is also just data. I think as creatives, I at least like to put emotion on everything. I like to look back and say, oh my goodness, that was so embarrassing that I did that. That was so silly that I thought I could do that, or that was lame that I did that. You might not have specific numbers, but you could look at that and say, okay, aligned or not aligned. It could be totally unemotional, it could totally be factual. That's what having a business is, and that's what you are as an artist, is that you are your own business. So think about that. Really, is just, it's data. Tried this, doesn't work for my brand. Tried this, doesn't work. That's all it is. It's just checks or X's. Creative experimentation is also done in safe spaces. We don't want to be working a client-facing job and decide, am I going to be the aggressive person or am I going to be the polite person? There's certain times where we're not gonna experiment. I'm not gonna experiment in my cozy girl job because I have a process that works, and I also am working for someone else, and I respect that they trust me with their clients. That's not a place for me to experiment. We should be experimenting in our own business. We shouldn't be experimenting on other people's businesses. And this also goes for safe people too. It goes back to this idea that you need a creative community. You want to be able to talk to people about, I tried this and it didn't work. And I have realized in my life that I don't really have space for people who are going to judge my decisions. It's different from people commenting and just questioning, oh, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? But I have had people in my life just straight up judge me and be like, why aren't you doing this right now? That's wrong of you. I personally don't find that to be a safe person. Safe is, they're physically safe, but I guess I just mean a person who I feel safe with and comfortable with as an artist. Going back to the dirty diaper phase, you're a newborn, right? You need to be with physically safe people who are not going to harm you, because this is the beginning of your journey. So you don't want to be around people who might put you at risk for your own mental state. This is also in safe situations. We don't want to extend the experimentation to anything that would put other people at risk or anything like that. We want to make sure that this container we're creating for ourselves just is safe. There's nothing wrong with you trying to start an Instagram and then realizing you don't want to. Opening an Etsy shop and realizing you actually want a brick and mortar shop. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to maybe risking other people's money, or maybe doing things too soon that might put other people's money or careers at risk, I don't even feel like I need to say this at this point. You understand what I'm saying. This last part is about intentional failure. And yes, the first is embracing the cringe. If you haven't already envisioned yourself cringing at yourself, then you have not done it right. No, I'm just kidding. You have. You're fine. That's part of creating that journey to become the 25-year overnight success. If you're not looking back at yourself 4 years from now and cringing a little bit, there hasn't been much growth or movement. You want to look back and be able to laugh and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, because that means that you're learning and growing. And it also should give you permission that you're gonna look back right now and cringe. I'll probably look back at this video and cringe, and it just gives me permission to be like, I'm gonna cringe at some point at everything, so why not just whatever, be myself. I talk about quantity over quality when it comes to starting as an artist, working towards that journey of being an overnight success, in the sense that you need to take action. Quality over quantity, by my own definition, means that you're gonna fail sometimes. Not all of them are gonna be great, and that's okay. Whether that means art pieces, your good is always gonna be someone else's great for the most part. We hold ourselves to such a high standard that we have to understand that other people are going to look at basically anything we do and be like, I can't do that. That's amazing. So quantity over quality should be something that you're thinking about in this stage, especially when it comes to intentional failure. You know that the more things you put out, the more likely you are to fail. And that's good. That's a good thing. If we're practicing target shooting and we only failed twice, but we only did it 10 times, honestly, we want a higher failure rate for a little bit. I'd rather have failed 1,000 times, but I shot 10,000 times. I'd rather have that because I have a higher quantity of failure, but that means that I've been practicing more. And that's really taking all of your L's, all of your, I guess the opposite of a W, like take that W, it's like take that L, I don't know. Oh my gosh, this is, see, when we're talking about cringe, this. But take all those L's, instead of losses, take them as lessons, because they really are. I know that sounds cheesy, but just look at the cute graphic and just vibe with it, okay? And we want to thank you next all of those L's as well. Jack Canfield also calls this the no next, which is basically if you are trying something and it fails, next. No is just a next, it's never a no. And I just figured that an Ariana Grande song might resonate with you. Thank you, next. Thank you, learning experience. Thank you, failure. Thank you, next. Failure means that you are moving. Whenever we're failing, it means that we're taking action. No one fails by sitting on the couch watching Netflix. And now I have nothing wrong with sitting on the couch and watching Netflix, because I'm probably gonna do that right after this, because I am in the middle of Gilmore Girls and I very much want to see what happens next. But look at this in perspective of your creative journey. You might see other people in your life and you look at yourself and you say, why am I failing so much and they're not? Maybe they're not pursuing their passions. Maybe they're not working so hard to be full-time creatives like you are, and no judgment to them. Maybe they're on their own path. Maybe they haven't found what they want to work towards yet, but you're gonna see more of the people who are working towards it and failing. You might see your friend who starts an Instagram and then tries this and then tries that, but at least they're trying, right? And that's the important part, is we want movement. We just want consistent movement happening, because in order to have that overnight success, we need to just keep moving. And it's gonna feel like forward, back, back, but at least that's not just staying here the whole time. And that's what I want you to take away, is that while it does take 25 years for you to be an amazing artist, it does not mean that you have to wait 25 years to start moving. If all you need to do is be 1% better every single day, and you do that for 365 days for 25 years, you have gotten 9,125% better in 25 years. What does that look like for your art? What does your life look like? Let me know in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want to see that little button change colors and get little notifications whenever there's a new video or podcast, and I will see you next time. Bye.